Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. And if you're not, I'm going to make your day a little bit better. If you're doing excellent, I'm also making your day a little bit better. Y'all love Mass Effect like me, right? Okay, we talked about the Expanse Osiris Reborn last year, but also I was kind of in a let them cook phase for Owlcat Games, right? We know them for their isometric RPGs, and they have delivered on that. But this is a whole new ball game. Third-person, action shooter, very much taking inspiration from Mass Effect. Oh boy, they are coming for that Mass Effect love and heart. And after a hands-off digital preview that I just attended, I gotta talk all about this game with you guys because I am so excited, especially now knowing this game is arriving spring 2027. And we know Exodus, you're saying early 2027. What's going on there? So are we about to have this big old Mass Effect renaissance at the top of next year? It seems that way. But right now I'm here to talk to you about Expanse Osiris Reborn. Shout out to Owlcat for including me in the hands-off preview. Y'all know how appreciative I am of these opportunities, but seriously, thank you for watching the channel to make these opportunities possible because I like doing the news, but like this is what I'm here for. I'm a review guy. Like that's what I cut my teeth on. That's what I love to do. Is my favorite type of content. So super appreciative of the opportunity. Let me tell you all about everything I learned when it came to Expanse Osiris Reborn. So get cozy. And if you're new here and you're into anything that looks like Mass Effect, consider subscribing. I talk about it all the time. All right, so a couple of deets that were dropped at the end of the new gameplay trailer. First and foremost, this game, again, it's arriving spring 2027, PC, Xbox, PlayStation. They're also doing a closed beta. This is on April 22nd this year. This will be available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation as well to the people who bought the Miller's Pack or the Collector's Edition through Owlcat's own website. Meanwhile, press and creators, such as myself, will be receiving some advanced access to that, so keep an eye out for that. Last bit of detail here, really exciting one for the Xbox fans out there, as well as those who are subscribed to PC Game Pass. This is a day one Game Pass title, so they are really getting out there with the Expanse Osiris Reborn. I was really happy to see this one. Now, let's get a little bit into this gameplay trailer. Dude, if you see this gameplay, dude, okay, couple of frame drops here and there. Obviously, those are concerns that I'll air a little bit closer to launch if they're not ironed out. Right now, I'm looking at the meat and bones of this game, right? I'm looking at the damn camera distance, dude. The way the camera and its space between you and the playable character and the little wobbly animation when you're running around with your shotgun out is literally Mass Effect, bro. It's insane. The gunplay and the cover shooting, literally Mass Effect, bro. The usage of your abilities, the cover shooting, the Y button being an ability, LB and RB are abilities. Pressing both those bumpers at the same time, ability. Literally Mass Effect. One long weapon, one sidearm. Literally Mass Effect gameplay framework. I can't, because they've done such a good job replicating it. And the reason I'm excited about this is because, as I talked about last year with Owlcat, they are following this trajectory very similarly to where BioWare was. BioWare was known for their Baldur's Gate sort of isometric RPGs, and they started to evolve, and that real big first step of evolution, right, was actually Mass Effect 1. As much as I'd love to give it to my baby KOTOR, Mass Effect 1 was really that moment of them kind of melding together hardcore RPG mechanics and choice and consequence while also being a third-person shooter. And now we're looking at just what is one of the best trilogies in gaming as far as I'm concerned. So to see a company that's sort of followed in their footsteps, isometric RPGs, and now getting into this moment where I'm like, can they do a third-person shooter? I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm like, yes, they can, because we're also seeing some new wrinkles being added in, like environmental destruction, environmental interactivity. And also, one thing, Owlcat, thank you for showing dialogue. This is something that I've been getting on Exodus for. Look, Exodus just showed us a little bit of gameplay, and they said this summer we're going to get an extensive preview. So I'm not going to breathe down their neck too much. It's clear they're just prepping things, and their timing's a bit different from Expanse. But Exodus, for all the choice and consequence they've been trying to put forward and say it's basically Interstellar, but a playable RPG, I'm all about that. But when you have like James Olin piecing out, and we still have not seen any actual dialogue, as in like the dialogue system, I was so thankful that Owlcat just stepped out and showed us this, because first and foremost, no wheel. Was so happy to see that. I thought there was going to be a dialogue wheel for this game. Again, I thought they were going to go the Mass Effect route, and I guess you could technically say it's like a quote radio menu end quote, but there are 4 options right there in front of you in the trailer. I was like, whew, okay, awesome. Love to see it fully written out so there's no guesswork on, is that what I'm actually going to say? Am I going to end up sounding more like a dick than I meant to sound like in that statement? I like that it's clearly written out. That's cool. They also talked a bit about skill checks. That's going to be a high priority in the game. We'll get into that with character building, but just I want to say that during this presentation, choice was heavily emphasized by Owlcat Games. And on a personal note, rewatching the trailer a couple of times, I got to say I was impressed by the animation detail. I really didn't expect them to glow up this quickly, but it does remind me a little bit of what we saw with Larian and Baldur's Gate, where I've played a lot of the recent Larian games like Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. And when I was playing Divinity Original Sin 2, I wasn't having that moment of like, hey, their next game is going to bring the camera in close and these characters are going to be super well acted, super well animated. Like, was not expecting that. And so while I have not played really as much Warhammer from Owlcat as I should, definitely this was a moment where looking at the game, I didn't think that they would have in their next game bringing the camera close with such great detail and such impressive animation, quite like they have here with Expanse. But I just wanted to compliment that as well. Now, I got some exclusive info that was delivered during the briefing here that I wanted to walk through with you guys, because it's not just sort of like Mass Effect vibes from the third-person gunplay department. You'll be able to explore space and pick the missions that you're going to go on. Of course, you know, for me, as not only a Mass Effect fan, but a KOTOR fan, I was like bouncing in my seat when I found that out. They didn't show it, but there's one point in the trailer where you see your main character walking through the starship and you see in the middle of the room a star map, and I imagine this is how we initiate that travel. We also see like a brief snippet of flying around, looks to be a local area in space, but it again looks like they're actually going to take that space travel element of what Mass Effect does and bring it here. Keep in mind, Expanse is a little bit more grounded. They actually talked about this in a Q&A, which I'll get into after all of this information I'm going to give to you. But basically they said, kind of without saying, like, yeah, if we were to ground it as much as what Expanse does, where like how the passage of time is felt in that show or in those books, that would kind of break what the game's trying to do. But they do have cutscenes dedicated to showing off that passage of time, but it looks like, again, they're going for more of the Mass Effect vibe here, where you can really travel through space and at a certain point in the game start picking your missions and what planet, what hub you're going to go to. And again, that sounds incredible. It sounds like something my soul has needed for so long, dude. They talked a bit about loadouts and character builds. I thought this was pretty important to point out. It's not just going to be your weapons that you have. Like I talked about the long weapon and the sidearm. It's also going to be a suite of gadgets and subsystems. And there are guns that are going to be able to be found throughout the level. In the beta that they were talking about, they said there's 5 to 6 different guns already there. And there's like also gadgets as well in the beta. And they said this accounts for about 10 to 20% of the total that'll be in the final game, which I heard that and I was like, really? Again, this is where I'm saying they're kind of over delivering on what my expectations were. I thought it would be way less for their first kind of foray into this type of action. They also confirmed that you can upgrade your weapons at a workbench. They talked about this a little bit, but it was actually visualized here. Basically, you do this through materials, and these materials are found during missions. So thought that was hype. Then they started to talk a bit about skill trees, and they showed very lightly what those skill trees will look like. Combat skills are something you can upgrade, your shooter, your gadgets, your survivalist, your leader skills, and then also exploration, which started to tap more into social skills and skill checking, because I saw persuasion. I also saw athletics. I thought athletics was an interesting one. I'm like, okay, that's a deeper cut there. So these checks are all going to come into form when it comes to gameplay, whether it be dialogue, skill checking, combat, that sort of stuff. So there will be character building that leads to diverse builds. And then also they talked very briefly about an active pause system. So you know how in Mass Effect you could like hold your bumper and bring up your power wheel and it pauses the game? This is more of a slowing down time compared to something like Mass Effect, which again just kind of pauses the game, where you can assess the situation and then you can issue orders to your squad mates. So they didn't really get into the feature set for that, but I assume if it's anything like what the rest of the game is shown, which is it's Mass Effect, you'll be able to direct your party members on where to go, of which, by the way, you're usually traveling with 2. During the beta, you'll have 1. Now, who are these companions? They revealed that as well, And I was reading some of the reception online to these companions, and it was pretty cool to see how positive people were, especially again compared to something like Exodus, where I noticed that some of the companions, people were like, oh, it looks like a little samey there. And they do kind of need to update the faces on some of them. Where what we've got here is Regina, who is a precision-based companion. She's like a sniper scout type. Alicia is based around cyber attacks, so she's kind of described as the snarky hacker. There's Polly, who's demolition focused, and they said she's, quote, armored enough to take a hit, end quote. There's Teo, who's more of a combat medic. Michael, who is a demolition gunner style character, and Zafar, who is a mechanical engineer. So they all have their own kind of unique gimmicks and stuff. Mass Effect fans, I know what you're thinking. You're already looking at this, trying to decide who you're gonna romance. So I will read the comments and judge you for who you do pick. So voice it wisely. I'll be watching. Let's talk a bit about this closed beta, because it's a little unorthodox for a single-player RPG developer to be doing closed betas. But they actually answered this question during their Q&A. And they said it's about as simple as you can kind of imagine. They're just looking to check for feedback because there's a lot of time right now. And I think they are timing it perfectly, right? This is a beta that's coming in April. They're going to take that time to collect that feedback. And this is spring 2027. So they're giving themselves, I'd imagine, a year max at this point to kind of read and assess the situation on what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, or are they just cooking and they should just lock it in and go for it. So that's the point with the beta. A little bit of an interesting approach because, yeah, you see beta and you're like multiplayer or some sort of cooperative element, right? But that's not what's happening here. They're just literally testing their single player RPG. So keep that in mind. The beta is going to include one story mission, specifically the second one in the game where you arrive at Pinkwater Force Station, and you'll be able to choose between two presets. One is the officer, the other is the hacker. The officer is more focused on gunplay, where the hacker is focused on combat abilities. So again, think your soldier and sentinel, I'm thinking from Mass Effect here. And one is from Earth, the other is Belter. So keep that in mind as well if you're interested in the beta and have pre-ordered. Then into the Q&A section, where they did reveal a lot of information on what's exactly going on with the Expanse Osiris Reborn. A lot of the questions were Mass Effect geared, and I was very impressed watching these preview sessions here as they sifted through these questions and did not shy away from anything. They talked about Gen AI. They talked about Mass Effect. They talked about how long the game is. Like, they were just very open about everything. And I just love how they do business here at Owlcat. So I'm a huge fan of that. So Mass Effect, big question that was asked was, are they doing Mass Effect style exploration activities? So they did shut down the idea of something like a Mako being in this game, where you'll just drop on any random planet and ride around in free open planets. They're not doing something like that, but they are, again, as I mentioned earlier, giving you the freedom to explore the solar system. Another question that was asked, and one that I'm curious on as someone who's looking at this as a Mass Effect fan and not an Expanse fan, at least not yet, I haven't watched the Expanse, is, are the shows, the books, are they mandatory? And they said they are aiming for it to not be that. So you should be able to just jump in without any knowledge, just like as a gamer, just pick up this game and take full enjoyment away from playing it as it is. They talked about how long the game is. They said around 30 hours. And again, I wanted to just get up out of my seat and applaud if they could hear me because it's the perfect RPG length. I will die on that hill, right? You know that meme of the guy who's sitting there like, change my mind. That's me. 30 hours is the perfect RPG length. Changed my mind because I grew up on that, man. Like, I think of all those BioWare games. And again, they're dialing it in to the very science of the length of the game. I don't know if this is actually intentional, but like, they make really long games for this one to just suddenly be like, yeah, 30 hours. I'm like, interesting. With your choice and consequence, your Mass Effect style game just happens to be 30 hours. I know the first Mass Effect was a little bit smaller than that. Like, first Mass Effect you can beat like 20-ish hours for sure. As someone who platinumed the game, it can take a little bit longer because insanity difficulty is insanity difficulty. But I digress. I was very happy to see this because, for me at least, for those who are curious why I think the 30-hour RPG is far superior, is really this. I prefer a tighter RPG that I can replay over and over and see all the outcomes in. To me, that turns it into the 100-hour RPG very quickly. So I value that a lot. It's not even like, I'm old now, give me short game. No, I'm talking like, this has been me since a kid, dude. Since a kid. Like, I do enjoy, of course, you know, your long journeys in video games. I'm a JRPG fan, so I know how great that can be. But man, hearing them dial in like that, sick. They talked a bit about romance. BioWare fans who listen in. So they said this is going to be similar to prior Owlcat games. This is when the switch flipped in my brain. I was like, I need to study up. So I need to start doing some research. It's time to play some and beat some older Owlcat games. But they don't want the comparisons yet to Mass Effect because they didn't at that time have like the exact memory of what the sex scenes were like in Mass Effect. They talked about how it was very much like close up to the face. So I don't know how spicy things get here, but y'all know how I am with romance in games. I'm just kind of like looking for the good character story here. Not to be a weirdo about it, but that's just how I've always been with romance. It seems like I'm the odd one out on that sort of stuff. They tackled the big old Gen AI question, which I was a little bit surprised to see. It's usually like a quick deflection, but they were honest about it. They said they don't use it to create assets in the game, like final assets, but they do use it for prototyping and placeholders. So you've heard this answer before, but I'll go through it anyway. They said it's all going to be replaced at the end, but they'll use it to test technology. I like that they actually provided examples. It makes it a lot easier to believe what they're saying when they actually give us use cases. This is something that a lot of companies go, yeah, it's placeholders, but like, you don't got to worry about it, right? But they're like, no, here's how we use it. They said like, we tried a 2D image and seeing how it looked in 3D. We changed the colors to something that looked much better. We don't use it for writing. We don't use it for voice work. The final version, everything you see will be human made. So that is the goal. I hear this, and for me as someone who is anti-Gen AI in video games, I hear this and I go, okay, like if I don't see it, I don't care. You know, in that instance, placeholders are fine. I just get tired of the whole placeholders slipping by. We made a mistake and there's not an active effort to remove it. Cause I'm like, I don't see teams like I saw what happened in Crimson Desert. And I'm like, if Crimson Desert and Pearl Abyss weren't called out about the Gen AI art in their game, would they have someone in Pearl Abyss stood up and be like, guys, we're better than this. Come on, we got to get that. They're like, no, why would we bring the heat to ourselves? So they're always waiting to get caught. So long as Owlcat holds themselves accountable, this is fine. The philosophy is fine. It sounds pretty stock standard to me. Last thing was the workforce and how things are split up, because I was wondering this as well. They're also working on a new Warhammer game, Dark Heresy. They said there are 2 teams. I think I got a number on how many people are working on the Expanse, but there were a couple people talking at the same time and it was hard to actually understand. So I don't want to put that number out there in case it's wrong. The number I did hear loud and clear is that there's about 60 to 70 people working on Dark Heresy, but there are 2 teams. There's one team that's working on Unity games, which is what basically Dark Heresy and those Warhammer RPGs are, and then the other team is on Unreal working on the Expanse, which sounds like it's their current main game right now. Anyway, that's all I got for you on Expanse, but dude, again, I don't know. I think this looks awesome. I think just seeing how good it looks, as someone who's not even a big Expanse fan, but like we're still a year out and this looks fantastic. Again, they are coming for my Mass Effect love and heart, and I'm all about this. So I'm keen to get your thoughts. Fire away down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I will catch you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all.